Greetings and welcome to the Elm City Lit Fest podcast. The Elm City Lit Fest is a celebration of literary arts, literary artists, and literature of the African diaspora. We are based here in New Haven, Connecticut. We are on tonight talking about how we connect African American culture and African diaspora culture. And dis-Connecticut, I am Ife Michelle Gardine. This is my Lit Fest team, Emily Mayo and Sean McAllister. Tonight, we are so happy to have our friends from the northeast part of the state, New London. They are Juanita and Josh, and they're called Culture.
Yes.
Fuck.
It's lit.
It's lit. It's lit. Like we want to. We're representing the state of Connecticut. We have Hartford split over in the middle of Hartford. In Hartford, we got some stuff happening in Bridgeport, and we got New London tonight, and New Haven represented. Welcome, Josh and Juanita.
Good to be here.
Cultured AF. So how did you all come up with that name? That's the first question I like to ask.
That's a funny story. I like telling this one. So I was, texting with one of my guy friends. Always shout out to Freddie. So I like to go to art shows and different things like that. And, it's easy to get my girlfriends to come with me. And I was trying to get a group of my guy friends to come with me. So I was texting Freddie and I was like, you guys really need some culture in your life, joking around with him. And he was like, what? I'm cultured, culture that's fuck. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. That's it. And so from that moment, I kind of just ran with the name. Like within a week, I had the domain name, I had the logo created. And from there, like everything kind of sparked. So, I always thank Freddie for like being that inspiration coming up with that name because it's dope.
Yes, it is. It is so dope. I love it. And it also encompasses so much.
Right.
Because people, Black people and people from the African diaspora, we cultured this.
Exactly.
We so cultured that people try to appropriate our culture, don't they?
All the time.
Yeah, and I just wanted something that kind of like, was in your face, something that kind of, a lot of times I think people think of the art world as being so pretentious or like uppity, and I really wanted something that was like real, raw, and it was like for everybody, and so it was the perfect kind of name when he said that, and it kind of just encapsulated everything that I wanted for the brand and what I wanted to move forward with.
And how did
Go ahead, Emily.
Yes, sorry. See, we're always doing this. How did y'all get started, and how did the Black community kind of respond to y'all?
Yeah. So I got started in January of 2019. And like I said, right after I got the name, it was like kind of wildfire. So I started, getting the branding and everything together. When I first envisioned it, it was really supposed to be just like a lifestyle brand. I was just going to be promoting arts and culture within specifically the Black community and the Black community within New London. So it kind of just started off as a social media thing with me posting different things. People really sort of gravitated to the brand and to the idea. I was still, hosting some other events at another organization. So people kind of knew me for hosting, open mics and different things like that in New London. And then within, I believe, a few months after I kind of launched Cultured, in April of 2019 is where I actually got Cultured Studios. And that became the space that became our hub of, everything that we did, the center of events. So we did open mics, live music events, we had game nights. That really became a social movement in London. And I think that people really gravitated to it and appreciated it because there really wasn't a center for a long time like that focused on Black people and centered us in that way within the arts and just being allowing us to be ourselves and come in our full selves without having to code switch, without having to, to try and fit into anything. And I think within New London, it was really, the love that we got from culture was amazing. We've been doing Talk Your Shit for a year now, and almost every single event has been, packed and sold out, which is amazing. And we've had people come from across, Connecticut. We've had people travel from New York. There's people that have come an hour away to come to events and programs that we've done. So it's amazing. The love is real.
Definitely. I've been to some of the Talk Your Shits, and it's a vibe every time. It's like you pull up to New London in this kind of sterile area,
right?
And it's like you get there and you could feel it. Like it's like this is where the people are. Like when you walk in the door, how you have the space set up, it encompasses everything that's being said. And my brother, I've seen y'all in Bridgeport too at Poets Realm.
Yeah.
And I've loved how you all have connected it, that people are taking that drive up 95 with no problem.
Exactly.
So what I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's been, part of our mission we've been talking about. It's like making sure that we're going out and supporting, the other arts and programs that are going on in Connecticut. And like you guys said, disconnecting, you guys call it dis-Connecticut because sometimes it feels like we're so disconnected in the state. So, I love that you guys focus on that. And that's sort of something that we focus on too, and wanting to feel that connection with all of our communities, across Connecticut.
Because folks, I feel like when people think of Connecticut, they don't think there's Black people here, or that there's a culture here, or that everyone feels you have to go to Boston or New York. But no, like it's going down right here with the same talent, with the same energy.
Yeah.
What were some of the disconnects you all felt between the art world and Black people in New London, or just in general?
Yeah. Well, within New London, I felt like, at least for adults, we definitely have some youth-focused programs that focus on Black youth, Black and brown youth. But for adults, I felt like there really wasn't a place in New London where, adults can go and enjoy the arts. We have a few different arts-focused nonprofits in New London, but the programming is not for, our community. New London, as people, don't realize, it's a very, very diverse town. It's small, only 6 square miles, but we have so much diversity here. It's mostly populated by, honestly, Black people of the diaspora, Hispanic people. We have a big Haitian population here. And, none of the programs I feel like really reflect that in the arts. Even with it, if you come to New London, you'll see there's a lot of murals down here, and most of them aren't done by, any of us, which is something that grinds my gears a little bit. So yeah, and I just, it's annoying because it's like, I felt like in southeastern Connecticut, where we're at, I felt like there was a void. And I felt like we had to travel to Hartford, we had to travel to New Haven, to Bridgeport, in order to do a lot of these amazing programs I'm doing here now in London, because within this little section of Connecticut, I felt like we were in a void of these kind of programs.
So with that, one big thing about Connecticut is a lot of people are told that they have to move out of Connecticut. Like, when are you going to get out? I was one of those people. I actually had moved out. I was in DC. When I came back home, I was looking for a place to do poetry. They said, you go to Bridgeport, go some other places, Hartford. And then someone was like, well, there's this person, Juanita, that does an open mic. And even when I came to her open mic there, she was doing that. Flash forward to her having her own space, her own programs. You can see that completely different vibe, like Shay just said, that, Juanita was really able to cultivate and honestly, I'll say, re-energize the poetry scene, spoken word scene in New London. And it was definitely a big help being able to connect with Bridgeport, connect with people in other places of Connecticut. And like we were talking about before, really show that we can come show support and they can come show support out in New London. So it's been amazing. And really, I'm a big up Juanita because she's been doing some heavy lifting making this work.
And I have to say, I can relate to leaving because for many years, I worked for several arts organizations in New Haven. I probably repeat myself all the time, but I've worked for almost all the arts organizations in New Haven as like myself and Alita Staten, holla at Alita, work as the only ones in the room. Or there's like people always want you to be the crayon to color their page, because they like you said, there's a lot of youth-based programs, but they're always run by white women or white people. And then we have the plantation of Yale. We smack dab, or we the plantation of Yale in New Haven. So we get like Yale students coming through on their way, because when they come here as a student, they're told, don't go out of the bubble.
Yep.
Same thing.
And you got College, the same thing, right? Don't go out of the bubble.
3 colleges in New London, people don't realize. We have Mitchell College, College, and the Coast Guard. And New London doesn't even feel like a college town because they don't integrate into the city at all. And I've heard from other people, other students from College that have been told, don't go into New London. So
I heard I was in another meeting for something else, last week, and a white woman that grew up in New Haven said her daughter, as a freshman at Yale last year, they were in freshman orientation. Now they still live in New Haven, and they still tell them, we can't protect you outside of this bubble. New Haven is this, that, and the third. And the woman is looking at them like her daughter went to high school in New Haven. She grew up here. She's like mad.
Right.
That's just to say. And also, then they turn around and they become juniors or seniors. And then it's like, oh, we have this money, so you could go do a program for the people we just told you.
Yep. Exactly.
The people that work at the college are the people that you're supposed to stay away from. The people that clean up after you. The people that keep your paperwork going through. That annoys me. But anyway, back on the connection.
Right.
Because we could talk about the other all the time. I created Elm City because I left. I went to live in Brooklyn. That's my second home, and I lived in DC long ago. But I was seeking the culture in other places, and there's so much talent that we have here that we got to cultivate what we have. So sometimes you got to bloom where you go. So God kept bringing me back. I had to say, okay, let me just. So Lit Fest was created, and we was gonna be live, but COVID made us pivot, so we pivoted.
That's what
we're so glad that there's other things happening along the state. Go ahead, Sha. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. How have you all pivoted in this time? Like, what have you gone to completely online? I saw that there's kind of a hybrid model for Talk Your Shit. So how has that been, having to still keep your audience, but I'm seeing that you're still getting the same love, and I think that comes from the genuineness of what you're doing and being a safe haven.
So COVID's been interesting. So when we first got into COVID and quarantine, we've done a few different online events. So we've done live music events. We hosted a couple of the Talk Your Shits just virtually. We've done a few panels. DJ battle. So we played around with some different events and platforms, to see what we liked. We definitely didn't want to go too heavy with it, especially right away, because we know that people are, get fatigued from this a lot. So we wanted to make sure we're being really intentional and trying to, space out the virtual programs, make sure we're giving, people quality content and what they want, and not just like blasting them with a bunch of stuff because we feel like we need to be doing something during this time. Yeah.
It's been a challenge. That's the best word. So us on the side of programming and hosting things, it's hard to try to fill the vibe out when you're doing an open mic. Me as like a performer or other performers, you don't get that same energy transfer when you're performing and you get someone that's like, or they're snapping. You don't really get that as much. So the last event, which I think the DJ battle, what I loved about that we did is we try to always make it as interactive as possible. So one of us is on the comments responding, We had giveaways. We had someone live painting in the corner, so we could bring in that, and then we can write. And then even in that sense, I was like, ask a question, and the artist was actually mailing them artwork. So it still had a tie-in. Yeah, they could come see us and pick up a shirt that we gave them. So it's more than just a Zoom meeting.
Just watching.
Watching. They have that still interaction. And it's tangible.
Yeah, so. I'm glad you said that. I think that's a big part of why people enjoy a lot of the programs that we do. So we're trying to make it feel as interactive as possible, even if we're virtual. And then so just this past Friday, that was our first in-person event that we've done, since all of this started. Yeah. So that was definitely a challenge, trying to manage a live event, also with doing the live stream. So that was definitely a learning curve for this first one. So now I'm already my gears are turning for the next one about how to manage that better, so I can make sure I'm giving the people at home just a great experience as, if they were here in person. So I'm always thinking about that. When I had studios, I always wanted people to feel like they were walking into my home, walking into my living room with each event that they were feeling welcomed into. So I'm always thinking about how can I create that feeling for people, no matter what we're doing.
That's great, because now my gears are turning for our weekend in a few weeks.
Right.
How do we keep people? How do we keep people engaged? And they're all different types of members as well. So that's. And I work in Yale School of Drama, and they're going through the same thing, the exact same thing. How do we produce? How do we do any of this? Right. Yes. And also, how do we go to school?
Oh yes.
In this container, right? And I was interested going back to New London as a pseudo college town. Have y'all reached out to any of the colleges to work with them and in any of your events?
Yeah, so I actually work at Connecticut College in the art department. So I actually just had a really great discussion with my department head, and they said to me, I really, especially because a lot of their programs right now are kind of on halt. My department head was like, we really need to be reaching out to the New London arts community, as well as Black organizations in New London. So it felt really good to hear that from my department head, and knowing that they want to reach out, they want to collaborate. So those are conversations that we're having now, about how we can get them involved. I've reached out to different departments on campus with there was one person that worked at the Unity House, which is kind of like their Black student union collaborative. Unfortunately, she's gone. But that was sort of my connection there. And we were formulating different ideas, to connect College with what we're doing in culture in London. But honestly, other than that, there hasn't been much yet. But that's a project that I'm going to be working on, within the next coming months. Hopefully getting some students over to culture to intern. Working on that. So I'm trying to, integrate more into the colleges and get them integrated, not just in culture, but within New London overall.
Right.
Yeah, because I find it's interesting that a lot of times Black people come to Yale as students, as professors, visiting professors or whatever, and they don't think that they go to New York to get a haircut.
Right.
Yeah. Or there's no there's something right up the street. You don't have to go to New York to get your hair braided or your hair cut. You can go right up the street. You know what I mean? And there's restaurants and there's a whole, like you said, a whole culture that we have to cultivate. What about the relationship with the arts organizations in New London? Because I know, Connecticut it has the what is that? The arts and culture department for the state. Claim that we're this mecca for arts and culture.
For the arts, yeah.
But for the arts, okay. But we are underrepresented. There's a few of us that get in there.
Right.
But like I said earlier, We the crayons the color the page, and then they flip the page and it's all white again. Because after they get one thing, or they want to, come in and do something in our community without like engaging anybody in community or using the local artists to do that. So what do you find those challenges? But now Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter. So everybody trying to make their Black Lives Matter statements and down with us. And we was already here. We was already down. That's why we created our own thing.
Right.
So within that, are you structuring your leverage? Like we have to leverage for ourselves. And if they listening, then they listening because they know how I feel.
Right.
I'll start because we got a lot. So, I mean, I'll start it to you this way. It says a lot because, I'm a teacher as well, and I teach poetry. It says a lot when you invite people in to teach poetry, and I have to now talk to, teenage girls who are, Hispanic teenage girls of color. I have to diffuse the situation between a board member and teenage girls. And so it's like, if you're really about the culture and you really are here for the community, it shouldn't be an issue that you can't even communicate with the students that you quote unquote want to help. And it says a lot when, me being I'm good enough to be your staff member, but I'm not good enough to be invited as an artist in the residency program. Right. And so then, what are you really saying? Who are you really here to serve? And who do you really want to keep around? Or, hey, I'm a poet, I'm a rapper. If you guys have any space and I can come perform, but you're asking me to volunteer and take tickets, then you don't respect my art. You're not respecting my artistry, right? But you respect it enough to teach poetry.
But you can take my labor.
Right. So, but you don't want to pay for it.
But you don't want to pay for it,
right?
And so you see a lot of times that in London, a lot of the funding goes towards these organizations that are predominantly white, and then when you see the people that they're hiring or bringing in, it's predominantly white. You see the murals, it's predominantly white. To the point where we're having discussions about paint and graffiti, and then someone comes in and a white artist paints over it with a mural, and now it's acceptable. What are we really talking about as far as acceptable, as far as art, and as far as what are you telling the people in your community? And we could talk about this for days.
Yeah, my biggest issue is with these nonprofits that like to tote around the fact that they're serving an undeserved community, or we're here for the New London community, or whatever. We're serving certain populations, and we're not. But this is what they write in their mission. This is what they write on their grants to get the money. But programming is not reflecting what they say they're serving. They're, the events and the people that go to them. That's not the populations that you claim that you're serving. Behind closed doors, you can talk about not. We don't have to care about New London. It's not our job to help artists. It's not our job to give out handouts. You don't want artists on welfare living here. Well, you're a nonprofit. You are welfare. That's literally what a nonprofit is. But you're afraid of bringing in working artists into your residency. But that's literally what you claim to do. It's supposed to be a residency for low-income individuals, but you don't want low-income individuals in your residency. So, right. So
or you just don't want the children that you are serving to see someone that is like them or from where they are from that's doing that. Because then it devalues what we do in our community. That it's a double-edged sword, right? Our community devalues our art because I've had dancer friends. Yeah. A church or a Black organization will ask them to dance at their program for free.
Yep.
They'll have a whole dinner and invite a dance company. They'll be to dance and entertain people at their dinner, but they won't have a table for the people in the dance company to eat at.
Right.
Or they won't have some say, just come for this segment of the time and we'll pay you. They don't include that in their budget. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
You know, and people think that the segregation just happened in the South. Yeah. And segregation is strong in New England. Yes. Okay? It is real. And we have to stay on it to maintain and have organizations like Culture That's Fuck, like Poets Realm in Bridgeport, like Hartford's Lit, Elm City Lit, and a group of artists, young artists here in New Haven. Like when you see Elm City Lit, we have Connecticut, we have global, regional, and local artists of color. And I purposely say of the African diaspora, nobody that switches, nobody that can walk into a room because they come from South America and say, I'm a person of color. Mm-hmm. You have to announce you're a person of color. No, I don't have to announce that I'm a person of color. So I want people that when you walk in the room that you're clear. Right.
There's no
That's what we Black voices, Black literature, Black arts and culture. I'm sorry. Emily is shocked.
I apologize.
I shouldn't be sorry. I'm not sorry.
I've had a large nonprofit, that's here in London. I've met the leaders of this organization multiple times. I met them when I worked, for another nonprofit arts organization. I met them again, after I started Culture. They've come into my space, and it's like every single time I have to introduce myself, and it's like every single time they pretend to not know what we do and who we are. Just a couple weeks ago, someone introduces this woman to me again. Oh, this and so from this organization. She says she doesn't know anything about culture. You guys should get connected. And I'm like, I've emailed this person. We've had a plan to meet on a Zoom meeting to connect our organizations. This was pre-COVID, and then COVID kind of, blew things up. And this woman stood there and never corrected her and told her, oh, no, I already know Juanita. I already know Culture, and I already know what they do in New London. We've been in the newspaper several times, not to, toot my own horn, but it's like at this point, if you're an arts organization in New London and don't know Culture and what we do, then you're not paying attention, because you're clearly not paying attention to, to our community. And this is exactly why we exist. So at this point, it's like, if you don't know about us, I don't care.
So one thing that I can say that Juanita is very good at is that when people try to work with us and they want to reach out, definitely we always open the door, but Juanita is good at making sure they know if we're going to do this program, we got to make sure that we are focusing on artists, musicians of color, that we're focusing on queer artists. And with that, you do get people that feel uncomfortable and that may not feel as if they can. It's like, no, there shouldn't be anything wrong with us saying that we are here for the culture. Like, if that's an issue, then that's something that's a personal issue. That's nothing that we have to worry about. So,
and just write us a check and let us do what we got to do.
Right, or that. I'm having some conversations with another organization that's interested in doing a program, and so I don't know how that's going to go yet, but hopefully it's it's like there's so many people like, how can we help? How can we support? Just give us money. All these organizations, all these Black organizations, just support Black organizations, support Black business, support Black people, and just give them the money. We have the tools, we have the education, we have the knowledge, we have the skills to do what we need to do. We just need the financial resources a lot of the time. We don't need, we don't need your input. If you're really, here for us and you truly, stand by wanting to be an ally or stand by wanting to support these organizations, give us the resources that we need. Don't let us do our programs. Let us do what we need to do. We can do it. We do it well. We do it well with very little resources. Oh, we make do with what we got. We've always had to make do with what we had. Imagine if we had more on top of that, the things we could do. So it's like, if you want to support, a lot of times it's just give us the money.
And I think a lot of organizations who want to work with Black organizations of color, they kind of come in like, okay, well, what do you need? I don't need your guidance. I don't need to set up the infrastructure. We've done all that. That's what brought you here. Like, we just need the capital. Because a lot of times we're working in capitalism with no capital. And folks don't want to trust us enough to donate or to really sow a seed. But that's all we need, because like you said, we make it shake with very little. And that has what has sustained Black people, and that's what makes us phenomenal, because these people, they try all the time to cut us out, not give us the resources or do anything they can. They're like, damn, how are these people still fly? How are they still doing? And it's like, we're going to prevail. And I think I wanted to ask you, how do you all feel about how these organizations are treating organizations of color? Do you feel like it's even worth to kind of show up to them like, let's work? Or do you think we kind of need to pull back and tighten up in our own space, and then when they want to come, they can come? But that that asking, I feel like it's kind of getting dried up.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that way. I'm not really asking at this point. Like I said, if an organization, comes to us and wants to work with us, and there's been no, from my knowledge, any, wrongdoing on their parts of how they treat artists, Black artists, then sure, we can have a conversation. We can, work. If I could see that there is good intentions there, I'm always open to working with someone. There's other organizations where I'm like, no, they need to be burned to the ground at this point, because there's no reforming them. You can't. A fish is rotted at the head. They're rotted at the head, and it needs to go. I'm no longer at this point. People, because have asked me like, oh, well, don't you want to work with them or make it better? Or like, one, I've already worked in this organization. I've worked in this and I'm obviously talking about a specific one right now. I've worked there. I volunteered there. I've lived there. There's nothing more that I can do. There's no reforming an organization that's run by people who don't get it, who are, to do blunt racist. You're not going to be able to reform that, because now it's like trying to reform a racist. You can't do that. You can't do that. At least not in a way that that's going to be effective. So there's some organizations where I'm like, if there's no change that's going to happen, I'm not here for trying to, extend the olive branch or to work with people or teach them. They always want you to teach people. Yes. It's not my labor to teach you, right?
There are too many resources right now. There are too many people. The internet is damn near free.
Right. Where you have orgs that will want to reach out and bring people aboard to help them. And on one end, it's admirable to want to get help, but on the other end, it's not the labor of Black people to teach you and to commend you and to fix that, to solve racism. And no matter how you feel, actually, my friend quoted this the other day. No matter how you feel about Tyler Perry, one quote that he said is, "Stop trying to get a seat at the table and build your own table." And in instances of that, we've run our open mics. We did a slam competition, and we had people from New York, Bridgeport, all over. We sold out. We had full seats in about 15, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we're like, we're clearly doing something right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, at this point, even if it's just our small crew rocking, our small venue rocking, we'll ride with this till the wheels roll off, because, we're not looking to reach out to organizations that aren't really here for us.
Right. And here's my thing. If you've been running an organization for 40 years, yes. If you truly cared about, changing this organization, changing the culture of this organization, then step down. Let someone else take the lead. You say, you know what? We've been running this for so long. It's not working. We need to change. If you actually cared about this organization that you so-called built or whatever, then maybe it's time for you to step down. There's no reason why someone should be running the same nonprofit since inception. I don't get that.
Girl, because they don't think of a legacy strategy. They want to call you in,
right?
As a Black person, this what happened to me. They want you to come to a series of meetings, or a meeting, to talk about what they can do for your community. You could freaking hire
people from the community.
artists. Let's think of a long-term strategy, not just come in and give us an injection, because that's what they do at Dwight Hall at Yale. I can say that.
Okay.
There's a place at Yale called Dwight Hall. It's a nonprofit for students to volunteer. So students are going to Dwight Hall. The same students that in freshman year were told, don't go outside of the bubble.
Yep.
Don't talk to the people that clean your toilets and push your paperwork through so you can be in school. Don't talk to them. Don't go out. Don't communicate with them outside of what you have to. But now you a junior and you go to Dwight Hall and you say, oh, I want to do this for the poor Black people. No.
Yeah.
No, they need volunteer and internship hours now.
No. You need to find, like, that needs to be restructured.
Yeah.
Okay? That needs to be restructured. That needs to be like the people from the community brought in and let them do their thing.
Right.
And look and learn, be a student of that community. Because 9 times out of 10, when you graduate, you go into New York or Chicago or Boston or somewhere else where you think you're doing the community a favor. The communities, we have our resources. We are resilient people. We have our resources, and we got this. Right? And my other concern, like I said, with our community, we have to also value our artists.
Yes.
Okay. It's bad enough we got to go to white. We gotta get our chops at the white organizations because sometimes you work for the white organization. This happened too. You work for a white organization and everything you say or do is too radical or little, or you didn't have enough experience for this. But then you get pushed out.
Yep.
Oh, we can't find anybody with enough experience. You ain't looking that hard.
Right.
You don't want us to have that experience. But when I leave, you do just what the hell I just said.
Right.
Exactly.
So
hire
to start doing it ourselves. That's why I love you all for starting this. I think Emily has a question there.
Oh,
I do. I have a question for Josh. So I was on your site and I also peeped that Juanita did your site too.
Yes. Big ups to Juanita.
Yes. So you had a quote. You said your gift is not your own. And from what I was reading kind of in your bio, it seems like you were hiding your gift. Can you break that down for me a little bit?
I mean, easy. I'm a Black man that raps. Like that's that's something that's very stereotypical, right? I mean, flashback, I was in middle school and, me and my friends always used to write goofy raps. We'd always like rap with our little microphones. But when I did go to DC, I went to Howard University, shout out HU. Started doing, I went to my first poetry events. And, I've seen poetry, growing up in the community, but that was the first time I was like, oh, I could do some of this. I started doing poetry. Now, I moved out to Cali at one point and I started like going to open mics and performing. And I was like, oh, like I could actually do this, like this is something that I could possibly really cultivate. And so by the time I came back home, back to Connecticut about 3 years ago, I really was on the grind of trying to find an open mic, trying to get back into like really performing. I linked up with Juanita at the open mic. I linked up with Influence out in Bridgeport, BPT Creates. And that year, Juanita was actually the first one to give me a feature. So that was my first time featuring as a poet, poet and rapper. Influence allowed me to feature. I was in a slam competition. To the point where Juanita tricked me into hosting poetry events. Juanita was like, "Go read these names. Go read these names." And I guess just being a teacher and an educator, that just naturally came into it. So the best feeling for me, of course, I love performing. I love getting the crowd to vibe and to rock, nod their heads. But the best feeling for me is to see like a young poet or see someone that I know has talent and I can like give them all this hype them up and they finally get to the mic and share that and they get that reassurance. They get that confirmation that no one else gives them. And something I said yesterday or at the open mic How many videos do we see of Black people being killed, Black people being persecuted? How many videos do you see on your streamline all the time, right? How many videos or pictures do you have of yourself conquering, doing something that you're good at, like, and getting that feeling like, man, I did that. Like, there's times I got to be like, Juanita, you see how many people came to our event? Like, Juanita, like, you did this. This is your baby. Like, seriously. And there's times I'm not gonna lie. I see someone took a video of me hosting. And I was like, oh shit! Like I guess I am a okay host. Like we don't do that enough for ourselves. We don't do that enough. And when we can hype each other up, like, no, your gift is not your own. Like, you have a God-given gift. Give it back. Like, stop singing in the shower. Come sing out and get that energy out, because you're gonna receive it right back. So I did have to stop getting caught up in being a stereotype that I'm a Black man that wants to rap. And now I own it. Like, yes, and I get paid to do this. So, think what you want, but I'm out here, hoping to make that and I'm giving it back to the community. So absolutely.
That's dope. And it's like everything the examples you gave, your ecosystem supported you. Juanita gave you an opportunity, influence gave you an opportunity, and that didn't come from nobody outside the culture. People who had your best interest at heart, who saw your art for what it was from the beginning.
Absolutely.
And Juanita, you're a powerhouse. Like, I think we don't
Can you say it
you
again?
are a powerhouse. Like, we don't give ourselves our flowers because it is to remain humble and this and that. But you are moving, you are shaking shit up. You own a space. Like, and from my understanding, it's a gallery as well, right? You are connecting bonds and connecting our people that we didn't have that before. New London is a stretch. It's definitely a stretch, but you have become a safe haven for those of us who are out there. Yeah. And I think if somebody came to you outside of art, like, listen, I got the issue, I feel like you would help. You would extend whatever resources you could to be there. And I think that's kind of speaking to Josh when he says, our gift is not our own. God has given us these things. He has anointed us with influence, whether it's rapping, singing, writing, or business. We have a right. We have a duty to give that to each other, because no one else is going to do it for us. These people are not coming to help us, and I think that's okay. I think we need that. We need that disconnect.
Yeah, that's real.
Because there's nothing wrong with sustaining yourselves. Like when because early on too, when I was started planning this about a year and a half ago, the Lit Fest, and I was saying I want to celebrate the literature and literary artists of the African diaspora only. And they're like, well, why are you having a black? Why is it just Black people? Why is it just the African diaspora? Why can't it be? Because you don't ask when there's an Italian festival. You don't ask anybody that's not Italian to come in. When if they say a Jewish whatever, they don't mind if everybody comes, but you're only going to get their culture. So ask me
exactly
the way I look.
Right.
What other culture am I going to have? Look, I'm wearing Nina Simone. Right?
Oh.
And she got that quote that says, the duty of artists is to reflect the times they're in.
Yes.
And who and that's how you stay true to yourself. And it is also in the spirit of the Harlem Renaissance, where Black arts was thriving. Right. And that's how I feel about our state, our little state of Connecticut, that you could actually drive through in one day, all these cities, that we got to stay connected. Yes. We got culture that's fucked up there. We got Hartford's lit. We got the Poets Realm and everything in between. Yes. And we all have to connect. It ain't a competition. It's about making our stand and getting a part of this arts and culture money that comes into Connecticut. Right. Connecticut that Department of Arts and Culture is a lot of money. We need to get on some of that. And some of our people who spend a lot of money at the casinos need to, like, they win $500, well, they can donate $100.
Right.
from their 500 that they won on a slot machine or whatever, poker table. Because that's the other, I've been on people for years when there's a play or production or something. Because I'm also on the board for Collective Consciousness Theater Company here in New Haven, and it's like, oh, a play, it costs $20 to see a play.
Yes.
Didn't you just go to Foxwoods?
Yeah.
Didn't you just buy concert tickets that were $150?
Movie tickets.
Movie tickets. You know, you
Don't talk to me about seeing local artists and coming to support something local when and wanting to come for free when you just did that. When you just spent $300 to see Beyonce at Mohegan Sun, wherever. Wherever. Or bragging on Facebook that you went all the way down to New York. You drove to New York or took the train.
Right.
All of that. Don't tell me. And you got something right here. Oh, ain't nothing going on here. Yes, the hell it is.
I say it all the time. I'm like, oh, I drive to Bridgeport on a Wednesday, go to the open mic. Like, you drive all the way to Bridgeport? I'm like, you go to Providence all the time.
Same. Right. When y'all want to go to the club, y'all have no problem taking that 45-hour drive to Providence.
And then, like, aren't you like, no, I'm not. Because if you go and you actually look around, ain't nobody worried about you.
Right. Also, that's, one of the things that, I love about Josh and, when we're first connecting and everything is that he'll ride solo to somewhere. Like, he doesn't care. And I think more people to do that sometimes. So many people are afraid to like go out and like go by themselves if they don't have anyone to go with, and like you're missing out on experiences because of of that fear of being alone sometimes. And when I saw Josh would just like roll out to anywhere, he like, well, I'm just rolling. You want to roll? I'm like, I'm always down for a ride to enjoy people, to enjoy our people, Black people, to enjoy arts and culture. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. So yeah, that was definitely one of the ways that we connected.
Definitely. People don't realize I've been driving out to Bridgeport for about 3 years now. And they'll think back like, oh, you were here for like a year popping in. Yeah, and it doesn't take much to just show up and support. Yeah. It doesn't take much just to reshare stuff. And that's really what we got to get to the heart of, really what, like I was saying, that love what Juanita does. Like, we always show love. Juanita always shows love. It doesn't mind giving you an opportunity or a platform to help show your skills or help, build you up to somewhere you can be.
Right. That's really cool. Now I always think about that. Like, I always like go on places by myself just to see like what is there, like where are we? Because sometimes we forget. Like sometimes I forget. I'll use the eye stick.
And you have so many great people that way too, because it's forces you to like talk to someone or like interact, outside of your little circle. And that's how we've been able to meet so many great people, across Connecticut.
Artists.
And I think, always our philosophy is like, people, especially when you get into a small town, people talk so much about, when no one's supporting what I'm doing, if there's no support, local people don't support. I'm like, yes, they do. But you have to give genuine support, without any expectation, right? You don't go there, expecting them, to give you anything in return. No. Right. Out and show genuine support to people. And I feel like, our people always give it back. I don't care what anyone says about the Black community. They show up and they support. You give people love. You find the right people, they give it back. And, that's been my experience. And I think that's why we've been successful so far.
Absolutely.
And like Ife said, like, we're not in competition with each other. We want to, show each other love and lift each other up. Yeah, that's really important. It's really, really important. I know I wanted to ask, in the times of COVID and these times of continuing, I won't say elevated, continuing racial strife. Mm-hmm. What inspires y'all? It's easy to get, I know for me, it's easy to get kind of disheartened.
Yeah.
About the world. But what inspires y'all?
Well, I think it is kind of what Shah had brought up. There's points where I realized how much I've traveled and how many people I've met. And yes, I just I accepted that I'm an extrovert. So when I can, reconnect with people or even just check in on people, and I realize that they check in on me as well, or even just seeing that genuine support. Like when I launched the website, I felt like it was a time where I could put music out for people, like while they're home. Like that was one thing. But seeing like the genuine support from people that I got, seeing like people genuinely just try to make the open mics that we had online, seeing like people check in on me, like I really appreciated that more than I realized, because usually I'm the one driving all around. I'm the one dipping to DC real quick, or I am that person. But I do realize that having a tribe, a community that I really do have around me, extended tribe out in Bridgeport, out in New Haven, and seeing them really give that love back, genuinely caring about seeing me succeed and progress. There's a lot of people that will just be like, "That's dope," but then there's having those people that will go and give you specific extra ways that I can improve, or giving me specific ways that they what they really enjoy about me, and they're like, "Josh, we'll make sure we drive out to New London because of the support that you've given us." I did have a moment one day when I was like, "Man, like we have some heavy hitting poets that came out to our little part of New London," and Juanita had to be like, "Josh, like they came because you showed them so much support. Like seriously, you built this bridge." And I was like, okay, having those moments where you can, self-reflect, and can look back on that, it really does show you how talented or just how powerful you really are. And it does keep me motivated, because I can look back on that and say there's much more that we can do. So yeah, that keeps me pushing.
For me, it's seeing the joy of our people. Despite everything that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, what keeps me going. There's been times with even just within our friend group, I've had to tell our friends we'll be going off about the white folk and everything that's going on. And I'm like, no, y'all, know what? We're not doing this right now. We're not going to center that. We're going to center ourselves and center our joy, and we're going to reshift this conversation. So there's definitely been times over these last few months where we really had to be intentional about what we're focusing on, what we're centering on, to make sure that we're not giving too much energy to to all of everything that's going on negatively, and making sure that we're still centering our joy. When it comes to like culture and the things that we do, for me, Josh knows I get a lot of anxiety before events. I start stressing out and freaking out. I'm like, why do I do this? Why did I start this? Like, what's the point? Like, this is stupid. But then after the event, usually I'm probably like halfway through when it's kind of just flowing, and I'm seeing everyone's joy, having a good time, the reception that people give. I'm like, this is why I do this. It's always that reminder each time that I'm like, okay, now I remember, why I do this, why we put this effort on. And just having that is what kind of centers me, brings me back. And so that's what keeps me going each time, for each event, seeing people's love.
So can I also add, we had one person that was like, "Oh, I just saw this on Facebook, so I drove an hour down." And I'm like, "Juanita, like you're doing something right. Like you have people that see it and they know it's a vibe, and they're willing to drive." So
That's dope.
It's like when you're doing the right thing, everything falls into place. Like when you're working with God and the divine, everything just, it's like, whoa, where'd this come from? Like, where'd these people come from? You heard about this from where? And it's like, yeah, no, I'm here. Like, I'm with you.
There was one.
We go hard. Hold on. We go hard enough because we see her vision.
Yeah.
So no, don't freaking do that. You see the team, like the team really rally around her. First day she told me like, "Oh, I want to do this, that. We could work for ourselves." I was like, "Bet." Like, I'm here. And I don't think she thought I was serious. I was like, "No, like I'm here. What do you need me to do?"
No, yeah.
I'm painting spaces.
Josh has been here from day one.
When you have a clear vision, it helps us rally around that.
No, I was going to say one great moment during, the pandemic for one of our virtual events. It had to be taco shit, I guess. And so we just had the DJ, rocking. Corey was rocking and playing music, and so the event was supposed to be over, but we still had 20 people logged on. So I was like, well, I guess we're just gonna keep vibing out with the music, and we were just jamming. People were we were talking a little bit, but people were just really there to see people and feel the music
people
and
dancing and
right, and it was just going and going, and I'm like, if you guys are here, I'm here for it, and so that was really cool.
Yeah.
That was definitely during right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
So knowing that we were able to give that space to people to just feel and connect and vibe out was really cool. So that's one of the great moments from virtual events that I can say was.
It's a good event when the let out is popping, and it's super lit when the virtual let out is popping.
Yeah.
Now, Josh, are you still teaching in the public school?
Yes, so I'm still teaching at yes, I'm just still teaching.
How has it? Are you in person? Is it online? What's some energy you're getting from the students? How are our young people right now?
Okay, so it's so exhausting. I can't use any other word. It's so exhausting. I think that it's specifically here. My frustration is there needs to be better communication. There's not great communication with the families, the kids. It's not great communication with our low-income families of color, right? I'm not going to just group them all together, but low-income families, families of color, our second language learners. It's not enough. And now what we're seeing is we went from, a couple hundred students opted out because they're giving them the option to stay home. Now we have almost 1,300 students opting out because there's not enough communication and they don't feel comfortable. And right now what you have is a hybrid case where students are on, Monday, Tuesday, or they're on Thursday, Friday. And you also have students at home. Now, as a student, I have to have all these classes, only see you twice a week, and I have to do things online. That's a lot, and I think that we need to have more resources as far as internet, as far as tutors, as far as, you need to hire more staff, right? We need more funding for teachers. You need more psychologists. You need more therapists. You need more training for teachers. On the teacher side of things, I'm now teaching one class that's split in two and split into a third where students are at home. So I have to teach students in front of me. I have to have my computer up, and then I teach students on Thursday, Friday. And specifically, my grievance is, I'm gonna say it, I don't care. Specifically, my grievance is this. I'm like, no, there are companies that are profiting off of the pandemic.
Yeah.
You have companies saying, oh, y'all need computers? Cool. Here's some computers, but you have to use our program. Now you have it being pushed down to the teachers where, oh, we're going to use a new program. Me as a technology, I teach engineering. I'm like, you saw the struggle that students have when you change the program. You see the struggle that teachers have when you change our program. Now you want to do this and give us training a week before classes start. You're setting the teachers up to fail. You're setting the students up to fail. There's already a gap. After the pandemic, after the quarantine, there's already a gap between our students. We know which students are being left behind.
Right.
Parents are talking about making pods. We know which parents can afford pods and can afford tutors. And people get so caught up in the word defund, fund education, right? You have a place in New London where their budget increased 28%, while the education system budget increased by 1%.
Wow.
Things are matching up. And if you really talking about you care about the youth, get more Black educators, because in Connecticut specifically, just like you said, it's not that, well, segregation happened in the South. No, you guys aren't hiring people. There's Black educators. There's Black people in these positions. We can see the statistics. Some aren't hiring them.
Right.
So now we're here with students that are floating in the wind. preparing them for college, and they are ill-equipped. Teachers are ill-equipped, and honestly, it's frustrating beyond words, and that's why I'm now on committees. Just like was said before, I'm not your crayon, I'm not your token person. If you want to make a statement, first thing we're going to say in this statement is a statement doesn't mean anything until you. Like if you want me to write a statement, I'll write a statement.
Where's
This
the action?
doesn't mean anything until we have action, right? And that's really where they have me talking to newspapers. They have me sending emails because I refuse to be quiet about this while we have students suffering and our students are suffering.
And we need more people like you and others to stand up, because there's also, with the segregation of the North, there has been self-restraint or fear of, oh my God, if I say something, something's gonna happen. So
they force that. They make that atmosphere where they say, as a educator or teacher, you can't talk about this. So now I'm where, like, we had a protest with the Christopher Columbus statue, and I spoke. And then it's like a tongue-in-cheek type of thing where some teachers are like, "Oh, appreciate you speaking," and then we have another training about being careful about speaking and what you post and what you. No, like if y'all want to fire me, that's fine. Like I will be okay. I'll fight all right, but I can't bite my tongue and be so worried about for my image when I have students that are telling me like, Mr. Brown, would you let your kids go back to in a pandemic? And I have to answer to them, and I have to be honest. I'm like, no. Like I'm not gonna lie just to protect my little bit of a check.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
So, on the subject of all that, in sync with all that, and thinking about the Lit Fest coming up at the end of the month.
Yes.
So excited.
Yes.
Which Cultured as Fuck will be presented. Listen, if y'all are listening, on Saturday, September 26th at noon, you tune in to Cultured as Fuck as part of the Elm City Lit Fest. That is their segment at 12 noon. We like people to get on Eventbrite on our site, right on our Facebook page, and like register, because we want a head count. We got to show some numbers so we can get a couple of dollars. We can say like, look, people came. But on that note, Josh, I want to ask if you could give us a little something, a little taste of, you spit a little something as we're winding down.
So I'm gonna do two things for you. I'm gonna give you a little taste. I'm gonna give you a little taste of who we have coming to y'all, and then yes, I will do a poem for you guys as well. So number one, I'm excited. We are excited. You can see me over here trying to contain myself. We have to you, Sammy Chiba. For those of you that know Bridgeport, y'all know him as a guitarist, now vocalist, singing as well. Sammy Chiba will be on guitar as a part of one of the artists musicians that we're presenting. Ashley will be a person that we're presenting. She's a drummer, all around dope person that we've been able to meet at one of our events. She'll be coming in as drums. We're excited to have her a part of that. Finn, definitely, if you are in the Bridgeport, New Haven area, you've heard her sing. You've heard her on key.
Yes.
They are amazing, down to earth, and overall just for the vibe and the culture. And so we're excited to add them to the roster of who we'll be presenting. And rounding us off will be Juanita, Drea. They
not
are
me.
Not different Juanita. They are actually the new executive director of Writer's Block. So they teach poetry. They were one of our slam competitors, and they'll also be doing a poetry poem as well. And last but not least, before I forget, we have the lovely Erica Ortiz, who will be doing and also doing poetry as well. So we have a stack.
And Josh is performing as well.
Yes, I'll be performing as well.
Yay!
Yes. So I'm excited just because we wanted to get you some musicians, some poets. So I'll maybe rapping, some singers. We want to give you a taste of everything. We are excited to present these people just because they've always shown love to us. And we want to make sure that we show love and highlight them because they are ridiculous. They are ridiculously talented artists. But yeah, I mean, with that, I can go into a poem that I enjoy because it's called Too Broke to Teach. So,
I feel it.
So, I usually tell my students to stop cussing, but fuck it. I'm going through something. First world problems really amount to nothing, but these bills amount to something. I got a bill for an emergency visit, 3 different bills for the same visit, one for the driver, the doctor, and his staff. I just sit back and laugh like they hand me the gas. Let me just ask, what more am I worth than my debt? Let me just ask, what more am I worth than my debt? Because the way they keep on calling like they sponsor my death. At least the life insurance is a reliable check. Let me just check. Damn. He's still breathing. Bank account uneven. Need to get the fuck up off his ass and stop streaming. I work a full-time, part-time, and I ain't making shit. They let me wait. I work a full-time, part-time, and I ain't making shit. They let me work overtime in my full-time, part-time, and I still ain't making shit. You think I'm making this up for the rhyme? I barely got the time in between grading papers and receiving job indicators. Woosah. I'm eating aspirators, but I'm the one that decided to be an educator. You see, I found out I'm too broke to teach. I left a well-paying job that, granted, stressed me the fuck out, but damn it, how could I manage my passion when the bill collectors keep asking? Granted, wall's my demeanor, and I ain't got warm welcomes for you asking me to stay late. See, I would love to, but I'm not getting paid what I was expecting to. So I had to pick up another job. You trying to slave my ass till daybreak. You gonna get these grades when I say so. Pardon me. I'm just trying to mold minds and form knowledge like halos. See, I found out I'm too broke to teach. You think my anger would subside? Well, teachers get compensated by the service they provide. Well, you can service these bills I'm neglecting. I guess you'll respect my absence since you never respected my presence. Appreciate y'all.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a feeling. It's a feeling.
You feel you're muted.
I was mute myself so I don't make no noise right now. But yes, we are so looking forward to all that you all will be bringing to enrich the Elm City Lit Fest. I want to repeat, everyone watching us right now, Elm City Lit Fest will be virtually Saturday, September 26th and Sunday, September 27th. We have a full schedule, y'all, beginning at 10 a.m. with Children's Lit will be Abdul Razak Zachariah from West Haven, New Haven area, and Sharika Ford and Mahogany Lowry. And at 12 noon, we're going to have Cultured as Fuck in all that they bring. Yes. And after Cultured as Fuck at 2 p.m., we will have, Emily, help me with the schedule. Help.
Yeah, we'll have Connecticut's Lit. We'll have
we're gonna have Poet Sun at CT Lit. We're gonna have Poet Sun and Dime Ellis.
Frederick Douglass Knowles will be back with us.
The Poet Laureate.
Mm-hmm. T'Challa Nzima, the Hartford Lit will be there.
And T'Challa and Nzima from Hartford Lit, because that's the CT Lit part. And as another treat after that, we will have graphic blacks. What is that section called?
Graphic novelists, cartoonists, hosted by yeah.
With black stuff. We're gonna have Micheline Head, and that will be headed by Professor Bill Foster. And it's going to have a man named Alex Simmons who does Disney. He did some graphic work on Black Panther. And we're possibly going to have another man, David Walker, who did Luke Cage, if everybody remembers that from Netflix. We have a sister, Micheline Hess, because we got to throw some feminine energy up in it, because we got some representation. So it's going to be, and then in the evening, we are going to have the word poets from New Haven, young people doing it, spitting their words, and Black voices at Yale Drama School. Because when the Black people come to Yale, don't nobody be using them. Like, come on now. Come on. All right. And then on Sunday, we start off on Sunday with a 90-minute poetry writing salon with Sonnet Man. Sonnet Man is Devon Glover. He's from Brooklyn. This brother was a math teacher, and he started rapping his math lessons. And somebody asked him if he would do the Shakespeare sonnets. So if you look up Sonnet Man's website, Sonnet Man NYC, you hear Devon rapping, like changing it all up, all in rhythm. He is fabulous, and he's been all over the world in Shakespeare festivals in his Brooklyn self. And then we will have a Black lit, the significance of Black literature, and we're going to have Dr. Brenda Green, who is Talib Kweli's mom, and she is the director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College, City University in New York, and she runs the National Black Writers Conference annually. That's also coming up in November. And that will be facilitated by Ron Kavanaugh, who runs the Mosaic Literary Conference in the Bronx, and has an Casa Maria book club, and another. He got lots of them going on.
Mr. Ron is tapped in.
Okay. And then we will have Black Voices in Theater with Terrell McRaney, who is the creator, writer, director of Moonlight. Moonlight. Along with Dexter Singleton of Collective Consciousness Theater here, and Sharice Salem of Vintage Soul Productions. So we're going to have
just a short list.
All Black. Okay? Because we utilize our own talents.
Yes.
And it is in the spirit. We are creating a cultural renaissance for the African diaspora here in Connecticut.
Right.
Matter of fact, we need to hook up Juanita and do a conference. Let's do
it.
Arts conference. Girl. Let's put that on the checklist after this is done, because this is major. Doing a virtual thing is almost as much as doing a physical thing.
If not more.
If not more. So we hope to see everyone. We are so glad to see everybody on Facebook. I shared it. I did a watch party. There's a few people up here.
I did too.
And we want to thank you all, from the bottom. We're so grateful. That's all I can say. We're just so grateful, and the abundance. We're gonna make Connecticut, like I said, we're gonna let them know there's some Black folks in Connecticut.
Yes.
They don't
they can segregate us if they want to, because before segregation, Black people was prospering.
Right.
So we won't need your conference. We won't need your stuff. So with that, I gotta say good night.
Good night.
We're running out of time,
Yes.
but Lit Fest will be lit September 26th and 27th, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
All right.
Thank you all.
Hey.
Peace.
Blessings.
Thank you.